Have you ever felt angry, hurt, or disappointed because of someone else's actions? For example, someone criticizes you unfairly, or a loved one ignores your feelings. Our emotions related to other people sometimes seem uncontrollable. They affect our lives more than we want them to. In this video, you will learn how the philosophy of Stoicism helps you take control of your emotions. You will learn how to free yourself from the influence of other people's actions and words, and become calmer and more harmonious. Now let's look at how this approach works and what you can do to become emotionally free. The principle of control is the foundation of Stoicism, which helps us understand why we so often feel stressed or frustrated by the actions of other people. Stoics teach that there are two categories of things: those we can control and those that are beyond our control. When we confuse these categories, we allow external circumstances to influence our emotions. But if we focus only on what is within our control, we can find peace even in the most difficult situations. Think about it. We can't control what other people say or think. We can't change what they do or how they treat us. But we can control how we respond to those actions. For example, when someone says a rude word, we always have a choice: to respond in kind and escalate the situation, or to remain calm and simply not take it personally. Your reaction depends only on you, not on that person. This approach frees you from a lot of unnecessary worries. Instead of thinking, "Why did he say that? How could he do that?" you can focus on your inner state. What can I do to stay in harmony with myself? When you accept that the outside world will not always be the way you want it to be and focus on your own actions, stress gradually decreases. To do this, Stoics recommend developing an awareness of your zone of control. For example, at the end of the day, you can do a simple exercise. Think about two situations that caused you emotions: anger, resentment, or irritation. Then divide these situations into two parts. 1. When the situation was completely under your control. 2. What was beyond your control? After that, focus on the first part. What could you have done better? Can you find a way to change your reaction next time? And let go of the second part, realizing that it is not your responsibility. Daily practice helps you gradually train your mind to react more calmly. Over time, you will notice that you become less dependent on external circumstances and more in control of your emotions. Stoicism gives us this tool to live without unnecessary worries and conflicts. Emotions often drive us to impulsive actions that we may later regret. Stoicism teaches us that there is always a space between stimulus and reaction, and it is in this space that we can find freedom. The freedom to choose a reasonable response instead of an emotional outburst. This principle helps us not only to reduce the influence of emotions, but also to find balance in any situation. The first step to reducing the impact of emotions is to pause before reacting. It may sound simple, but in practice, it takes practice. When we find ourselves in a situation that provokes strong feelings, our brains automatically look for an instant solution, often fueled by anger, fear, or resentment. Stoics advise us to stop and let ourselves think for a few seconds before responding. One of the most effective ways to create this pause is to control your breathing. For example, if someone says something that offends you, try taking a few deep breaths in and out before responding. Breathing helps to calm your nervous system and regain control of the situation. This simple technique allows you to shift your focus from emotions to rationality. Another tip is to use the "what would a sage say" technique. Imagine that you are addressing a person whom you consider wise and calm, such as a philosopher, mentor, or even an imaginary Stoic. How would this person react to your situation? What would he or she say? How would they act? This method helps to create distance between you and your emotions, allowing you to look at the situation from the outside. For inspiration, you can turn to the stories of famous Stoics. For example, Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and one of the most famous Stoics, faced enormous pressure and injustice every day. In his book Meditations, he wrote, "If you can remain calm in chaos, that will be your best response." Imagine how difficult it must have been for him to keep his cool during military defeats or court intrigues. However, Marcus Aurelius chose the path of reason over emotion. By practicing these methods on a daily basis, you will notice that your reactions become less emotional and more balanced. Controlling emotions is not about suppressing feelings, but about using them to make the right decisions. Stoicism provides us with tools that help us stay free even in the most stressful circumstances. Acceptance of reality is one of the key principles of Stoicism, which allows us to free ourselves from unnecessary expectations and disappointments. The Stoics believe that people always act according to their character and circumstances. They cannot behave differently than their nature, values, and current situation allow them to. If we understand and accept this truth, we can get rid of anger, resentment, or unrealistic expectations of others. Imagine a person who constantly annoys you with their actions or words. Perhaps it's a coworker who is always late or a friend who often breaks promises. We usually react to such situations with indignation. How could he do that? He must change. But is this reaction really helpful? Stoicism suggests looking at it differently. This person is behaving as his or her character and circumstances allow. Expecting him to do otherwise is like being angry at the rain for being wet or at the fire for being hot. This understanding helps you avoid disappointment. When you start accepting people as they are, not as you want them to be, life becomes much easier. For example, if you know that a certain person has a habit of criticizing others instead of being offended by what they say, you can accept it as part of their nature. This does not mean that you have to approve of their behavior or tolerate their insults, but you free yourself from emotional dependence on their actions. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "People are what they are, and for every action they take there is a reason. If they act badly, it is because they do not know better. If they act well, it is their nature." This reminder helps you stay calm even in the most difficult situations. Instead of getting angry at someone who let you down, you can tell yourself, "It's not me who has lost control. It's them acting in accordance with their nature. I can only control my reaction." You can practice this principle through a simple exercise. Imagine a person who annoys or disappoints you. Then think, what if this person will always be the same? Am I ready to accept them as they are? By asking this question, you will begin to remove the burden of unrealistic expectations and open up space for inner peace. This practice also helps you to accept people with love and compassion. Understanding that each person acts based on what is available to them in their life circumstances allows you not only to avoid anger, but also to see the situation from a more human perspective. A person screams because they are in pain. They behave rudely because their life is full of stress. We all have our weaknesses, and when we realize this, it becomes easier to accept others without judgment. Acceptance of reality does not mean indifference. It means that you recognize that some things are simply out of your control. You can choose how you interact with certain people, but you cannot change who they are. This approach allows you to focus your energy on what really matters: your own thoughts, actions, and inner peace. When you learn to see people for who they are, and not through the prism of your expectations, you will feel a great deal of relief. By letting go of the desire to control others, you free yourself from constant tension and open the way to true harmony. Stoicism gives us this tool of acceptance that turns frustration into understanding and anger into peace. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools to help us free ourselves from negative emotions associated with other people. Stoicism teaches us that our perception of the world depends on where we direct our attention. If we focus on the negative aspects, the offenses, mistakes, or shortcomings of others, it shapes our emotions, increasing anger, frustration, or irritation. However, when we refocus our attention on the positive, even in the most difficult situations, it changes our emotional state and helps us stay calm. The first step is to switch your attention. When you encounter a person who causes you negative emotions, try to find at least one positive quality in them. For example, if a colleague constantly criticizes your ideas, it can be annoying. But instead of focusing on this, think about it. Maybe this criticism is a way to make my ideas better? Does he have deep experience that I lack? It's important to see behind the person's behavior not only their shortcomings, but also what they can give you. This simple act of focusing on the positive reduces tension and changes your attitude toward the situation. Another example. Imagine that your neighbor is constantly making noise and disturbing your peace. Instead of getting angry, ask yourself, is there anything good about this person? Perhaps he always says hello in a friendly way, or has he ever helped me in a difficult situation? Even the smallest positive moments can change your emotional mood and free you from negativity. Practicing gratitude is another effective way. Gratitude has an amazing power to transform our thoughts. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to write down 3 things you are grateful for. These can be any moments of your day, even if they are about people who have caused you difficulties. This simple practice helps to broaden your perception. Instead of focusing on the negative aspects, you begin to see how even difficult situations and people can bring benefits and lessons. Stoic philosophers also emphasize the importance of gratitude. Seneca wrote, "When you are grateful for what you have, you will never feel offended by what you lack." This applies not only to material things, but also to relationships with people. When you are grateful for what you have, even in difficult circumstances, it changes your attitude towards the world. Through gratitude, we also learn compassion. By understanding that people act according to their circumstances, we can feel more compassion for them instead of judgment. If someone has been rude to you, instead of getting angry, try to think, why is this person like this? Maybe they are going through a difficult time in their life. This opens your heart to compassion and helps you get rid of negative emotions. To consolidate this approach, you can use another practice. Write a letter of gratitude. It doesn't have to be a real letter that you send. Just take a piece of paper and write, "I am grateful to this person for." These can be small things or important moments. For example, if you have a conflict with a colleague, write, "I am grateful to him for helping me see the mistakes in my work." Even if it seems artificial, this process changes your thinking and helps you find the positive even in difficult relationships. Practicing gratitude doesn't change other people, but it does change you. It allows you to let go of negativity, reduce stress, and find harmony in your relationships. It doesn't mean you have to tolerate injustice or bad treatment. But gratitude allows you to look at the situation from a different perspective, see opportunities for growth, and find inner peace. Over time, as you practice gratitude every day, you will notice how your life changes. You become less sensitive to criticism, more open to cooperation, and more confident in your inner balance. Stoicism reminds us that our emotions depend on our perception, and gratitude is the key to changing that perception and finding the path to peace and contentment. Mental distance is one of the most effective ways to reduce the intensity of emotions and better understand the situation. Stoics often recommended looking at events from the perspective of an outsider or imagining how they will look in many years. This approach helps to avoid excessive emotional involvement and make rational decisions while maintaining inner peace. Often, when we face a stressful situation, our emotions take over. For example, a harsh criticism at work or a conflict with a loved one can cause anger, resentment, or frustration. We automatically react, often without thinking about whether our reaction is appropriate. At such moments, mental distance can be a real lifesaver. The first exercise to create mental distance is to imagine yourself as an outsider. Stop and think, how would this situation look like if I were looking at it from the outside? Imagine that you are not a participant in the events, but a spectator watching them from the outside. What would you say to another person in the same situation? What does your behavior look like from the perspective of a neutral observer? For example, if you are arguing with a friend over a trivial matter, imagine that you are seeing it from the outside, as if you were watching two people in a movie. You may realize that both sides of the conflict are exaggerating the problem or reacting too emotionally. This view allows you to see reality more objectively and reduce tension. Another exercise is to imagine what the situation will look like in 10 years. Ask yourself, will this conflict or problem matter in the future? Will you remember it at all? In many cases, the answer will be no. For example, if you are upset by a colleague's words or a boss's criticism, stop and think, will this affect my life in a year, 5 or 10 years? Most likely, the answer will be obvious. It's just a trifle. not worth your emotions and suffering. This exercise not only reduces the emotional impact, but also helps you keep perspective. When we think about the long-term consequences, many problems no longer seem so significant. Conflicts that seemed impossible to survive become mere episodes that do not affect the overall course of our lives. An outsider's perspective also helps to avoid overdramatization. The Stoics emphasize that events are neither good nor bad in themselves. It all depends on how we perceive them. If you imagine yourself as an outsider, you can see how your perception adds emotional color to the situation. For example, an ordinary remark can be perceived as an insult only because you have added your own emotional meaning to it. This approach allows you to practice rationality. Instead of reacting impulsively, you get the opportunity to analyze the situation. Is this problem really that important? Is it worth my nerves and energy? Such questions help you filter out emotions and make a more informed decision. Practicing mental distance can also be helpful in difficult life situations. For example, if you are experiencing a loss or a serious conflict, imagine how you will think about it in many years. Can you see it as a source of lessons or opportunities for growth? This perspective helps to reduce pain and find inner peace even in difficult circumstances. Mental distance is a skill that takes practice. At first, it can be difficult to distance yourself from emotions, especially in the midst of a conflict. But over time, this approach becomes natural and helps to maintain balance in any situation. Stoics such as Marcus Aurelius emphasize the importance of this perspective. In his meditations, he wrote, "Imagine what this situation will look like from the point of view of the universe. You will see that it is only a small part of the big picture." This outsider's view reminds us that most of our problems are not as big as they seem at first glance. Thus, mental distance helps not only to reduce the intensity of emotions, but also to develop skills of self-control and awareness. The ability to look at the situation from the outside allows you to avoid impulsive reactions, find harmony in relationships, and remain calm even in the most difficult circumstances. Stoicism reminds us that our inner strength lies in controlling ourselves. We cannot change someone else's words or actions, but we always have a choice about how to react to them. This is our space of freedom and peace. If you feel that emotions often control you, consider how the principles of Stoicism can become your tool for maintaining harmony in your life. Take the first step today. Try one of the practices we've discussed. For example, pause before reacting. Imagine yourself as an outside observer, or ask yourself, what would a wise person say? These simple actions can be the beginning of big changes in your life. Thank you for spending this time with me. Stoicism is the path to inner freedom, and your interest in this topic is already a step forward. I would be happy to hear about your impressions and experiences in the comments. Have you practiced something like this? Do you feel any changes? Share your thoughts. It inspires me to create new useful content for you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to stay up to date with new episodes. Your actions help this channel grow and bring Stoic wisdom to a wider audience.